Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Slight technical difficulties, so if you're watching the video, some stuff might be messed up, but whatever, we're just going to hit right into it. I threw the mailbag on because I just wanted to give you a little shout-out, Matt, since we talked about it last week. What was it, Saturday night at about 7:40, I get a message, an alert that we had a voicemail. I got like 3 calls. But we got a text message that said, "When do I get my Top Gun hat?" You want to talk on that?
Yeah. With the 2 Saturday night games going into fantasy football championship weekend, my team was looking pretty bleak. Started out very crappy, and I was very angry at the performance of the early games, being that I had Lamar Miller, Texans running back, who got injured in the first quarter and had 0 points. So definitely it looked like I was set to lose and lose big. But just like my Fighting Falcons have done all year, Derrick Henry decided to show up, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones did what they did, and of course, I become the proud recipient of that Top Gun hat this year.
I will say the Top Gun hat was a joke that I made based off, I think it was a Workaholic skit where they had a Top Gun hat at work to signify the top sales gun. And I had won the fantasy football league 2 years in a row. So the second year I bought the hat and wore it to the draft. And of course everyone was pissed off about it. And now everyone wants the hat and they want to win. So much so that they start talking trash on Saturday night. I honestly didn't even know, to be honest. I didn't know that there were Saturday games because all I was looking forward to was the Steelers game on Sunday. I had forgotten, and I was wondering, like, what does he mean? The Thursday night game, yeah, I think there was 2 or 3 guys that were in on that game, but it wasn't enough to swing it that you would start talking trash. But I looked at it, and well-deserved, Matt. I know it's weird talking fantasy like that about stuff, but fantasy playoffs are such a random mess. So if you're a fantasy guy, I just want to say that hopefully you're not offended by that. But it is. You never know. One guy could get hurt, and it just doesn't matter. So,
well, the case in point, Derrick Henry. He was such a bust player that the only reason he was even in my lineup this week and last week was because my opponent was favored by so many points that it was just like, well, if I'm going to lose, I might as well just keep him in and like didn't mess with my lineup that much. And he goes off for 70 points in 2 weeks. It's like unfathomable stats for someone who's like typically averaging 5 or 6 points per game.
Well, the other thing, case in point, is what Boswell was doing for the Steelers. He was one of the top kickers last year. And if you get a guy like that, what do you do in that scenario? You almost have to cut bait. They said they had the tryouts this past week, but there's so many things that are hit or miss. You get a fumble, a drop pass, anything. But fantasy football is a strange beast. I will put that out there. But I definitely, since we got the question, came to the voicemail for the show, we had to bring it in. So
since we got that voicemail, I'll answer it. You got to win it before you get it.
I know. I got a follow-up today. It was like, what happens in second place? Nothing. It's a winner's league. You have to win. Win the division or win the championship.
Congratulations. You made second place.
I should have gave him a clap emoji. But let's go on to high tempo. What do you got this week?
This week I was looking back at a story that caught my eye. Was I don't know if you saw this out of Florida International.
No, I didn't.
There was a running back, Shondarius Phillips. He was arrested like 4 months ago for domestic violence and had an outstanding warrant and just kind of played the entire season for FIU. And just now is getting caught back up with the police and was finally arrested on his domestic abuse charges.
So wait, no one knew?
apparently it ran like he was charged and he had the warrant, but then like no one enforced it or nothing really came to light until recently. ESPN ran it from the 14th that he was arrested nearly 4 months after the warrant was issued.
Well, that's crazy because normally, yeah, I guess it could happen if they don't publicize it or if no one's looking at the record books. I know FIU isn't as scrutinized as the bigger universities in Florida. Maybe it slips through the books, but that's a bold move by him to just pretend it didn't happen and I guess hope it goes away.
Well, it seems like the issue happened in June, and late August that a judge issued the warrant for his arrest. So it was like there was some time that had lapsed in between, and it's like no one notified him that he had a warrant, and he just kept playing, and he ended up playing like 5 games, and or he played the entire football season, started 5 games. So
that's crazy.
I don't know if he's going to play in their bowl game.
Well, it's a weird situation, and it's not just there, but there's extra eyes on domestic abuse. I know Michigan just lost a running back due to an issue where he was arrested or charges were thrown to him or anything, and he was cut immediately. You have Ray Rice speaking out about Kareem Hunt and how football is looking at that situation where he was cut by the Chiefs. Do you think he gets back in the league?
No. I think the Chiefs made the moral standpoint of letting him go. And I almost think the same way when Baltimore, who's notorious for dealing with players with behavior issues, when they let go of Ray Rice, no one touched him with a 10-foot pole. It almost seems like the owners have an unwritten rule amongst each other and kind of stick to their guns.
Well, I guess maybe because it's a hot button issue, but let's not pretend like they don't sign guys that were arrested or possibly in murder cases or whatever Pac-Man Jones was up to those few years. You can always find your way back in. But this one, it feels strange. I could see Ray Rice because he was solid, but he didn't put up the numbers that Kareem Hunt put up.
Well, and I think with Pac-Man Jones issues too, a lot of those things were kind of speculative. That like this is what happened versus having actual like released video footage.
So he went to that Chris Carter school of always have a fall guy.
However you want to spin it.
All right, mine for my high tempo. Let's go. Let's stick with football. But have you seen the controversy that have been following the Raiders? They have a lawsuit now.
Yeah.
They have a lawsuit against them from the city saying that not only were they trying to move, but I believe the basis of it is they are trying to say that they are tanking this year. And the reason I brought this in is they're trying to say like they're basically swindling the city out of money for the stadium and everything else. And now even the people who paid for tickets this year, they were trying to build a case. They beat the Steelers. So that's the one point. And you could wonder, were they tanking? I know you had said last week, well, they kind of played themselves almost out of that number 1 draft spot. I wonder if they're a more talented team than what they've let on.
I think they are. I think 100% that. When you look at the teams that they've played this year, it's not like they've played a bunch of JV teams. You know, they're playing some very tough teams.
Especially with the Chargers actually being solid this year, clinching the playoff spot already. So they're in.
Playing the Chargers twice, the Chiefs twice. I mean,
it's very
Pittsburgh.
It's very easy for them to throw it. If you think about it, when you have 2 playoff teams in your division, that's 4 games there. You cut your best pass rusher and get rid of your best receiver. And what are you doing? You're trying to get that spot, but it's going to be very hard to prove in court any of this, even the damages, because sports don't really bring revenue to a city. There's been countless studies done that they really don't rejuvenate. Yeah, they might bring business on Saturdays or Sundays whenever the games are played, but outside of that, they definitely don't do anything of the sort, bringing the kind of money that they're going to get from the damages charges to the Raiders. So,
hold that thought for 1 second. I'm flipping to the other monitor.
All right. Confusing all the stuff up. All right, while Matt's out, going to jump into the Steel City update. Let's go ahead and get that up while I try to see if he's going to call me back. But we have Pittsburgh Penguins getting into the winter season. Matt Murray has been back from his concussion, has been playing a few games. Penguins are 4th, I believe, in the Metropolitan Division. 5-4-1 in the last 10. The positive side of the goal differential now, I know they struggle with that late, but things are starting to come around, and I believe that they're in a good spot. I don't think they're actually in. Let's try to call Matt back. Looks like he tried to get me. I don't know if they're 100% in the playoffs right now with the wild card because of the weird standings they have on display here, but I'm going to go ahead. Hold on a sec. Let's see if Matt gets on. It says I'm missing the call from him. You there?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right, I jumped on the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think they're right in where they want to be. Make that wild card spot. Get into the playoffs. I mentioned Matt Murray being back. I don't know if we talked about that on the show, and I don't even know how much that helps because he wasn't consistent to begin with this season. So keep making that push. See what happens.
But the issues are with the Penguins what they are. It's the defense. For a while before the Cup winning years, the issue was they played great defense, but they struggled to put the puck in the net. Now they have guys that everyone thinks they're a goal scorer, and no one wants to protect the goalie. And I think when you see the thing that really changed for them was, and I've pounded this drum for a while, that the defense was really what helps them. When they keep the players away from the goalies, Marc-Andre Fleury was successful with it. Murray was successful with it. I think the goalies that they have can do a very good job there, but they can't be doing it with multiple shots on goal per possession. I think that really hurts them. And then having Letang, I believe he's out with an injury that potentially is going to be hurting them now because they were short on quality defensemen, and now they're back even further on that. So I think that sets them behind.
Well, to be fair, they have been making moves to get younger defensemen in. So we've yet to see if that's going to come to fruition. It takes a little bit to get into the groove, skating with your lines out there. So they've made strides since they've made those moves. Let's see how they start to gel and get ready for the playoff push.
The other thing that really has me worried more is with the expansion. You saw what happened to Vegas, and I think one of the teams that was severely hurt was the Penguins, because you had people in both camps that preferred Murray better, that preferred Fleury better, but the bottom line was having both of them was a good deal for Pittsburgh because they were both top quality goaltenders that if you got it yourself into a pinch, you could flip-flop player to player, and you really didn't have that much of a drop-off. With a lot of those players, that were sent to Vegas, that really cut into their depth. And now you're going to be doing almost something similar again. I'm curious to see how the GMs are going to manipulate this so that they're not just draining the reservoir and kickstarting another expansion team into being a championship caliber team in year one.
I think they're going to change the way they do it. Now, that remains to be seen what happens with that. But you're right. This is almost a must-win, or at least if you're going to win a cup, must-win for the Penguins. because we already knew that the timeline was running short, and the expansion draft's only going to hurt once again, and then you're going to be in a sort of rebuild limbo, I guess. But let's see. You have a little bit of room on the cap, I believe. Now, that's off the top of my head, so I better not throw any numbers out there, because I've been also looking at Pirate stuff, which I'm going to get into in a second. But I don't know. I don't know what else they're going to be able to do once that draft hits to bring in additional depth. You're only going to be developing younger guys. Great they hit on Gensel in the draft. Can you continually draft well is what's going to help them in the next couple years. So, anything else in hockey?
No, not too much.
All right, quick hit on baseball. Pittsburgh Pirates. The rumors are, and I didn't see it finalized, but the rumors were that they were going to sign Troy Tulowitzki. Basically, at league minimum. I've heard anywhere from, $600K to $1 million for him. And everyone's touting what a great deal it is and how it's really going to help the Pirates. But this is the kind of deal that suckers fans in. Because you bring a guy, obviously, if you can get him that cheap, and maybe he's still getting his salary paid elsewhere. But I don't know if this is the big move that you're going to have. And coincidentally, this afternoon, the USA Today ran a headline. It says, Bryce Harper, the non-pursuit by the Pirates, highlights their meek free agency and playoff history. So the fact that they're not even considering going after Harper first, they've already settled in on their guy, get some infield help. I believe that's where Tulowitzki plays. Who even remembers? Mishler would know. Of course, he's not on. So I don't know what they're trying to do. And the other thing, that I think they signed a pitcher for $2 million. And I saw a beat writer talk about how that was a great steal because the Dodgers had to pay $25 million for a pitcher that had slightly better numbers. But better all around. Go get the guys if you want to win. I don't care if it saves $20 million. So not an exciting year if you're a Pirates fan. So definitely on the heels of the moves the Cards made and we talked about last week, don't be excited so far about this free agency for the Pirates. In fact, it's a mockery. If the USA Today is making fun of the Pirates singling them out, it's not good. You have any thoughts on that before we go to the NFL?
It really has become a joke. I'm trying to think. There was something, and now I'm drawing a blank. Was there something that happened with Detroit? No, we kind of, the Tigers are friends of the show. I want to say there was someone that they either moved or were able to get. I had it in my notes, and naturally I lost it. But there was something with them that was standing out to me. While I'm trying to think about it or try to find it, I was actually surprised at how much more the Harper possibility of him signing with St. Louis was heating up. And I was looking to see if was it just fan talk or was there some substance to it. And there were a couple different places that were reporting that at least there's talks going on. Not to say that that would definitely be a landing spot, but I definitely think that's a positive thing going forward, that at least you're in the running. At least you're putting forth an effort to try to bring him in or to see if it could be a fit to make it work financially.
Yeah, and you're right with the Tigers. I forgot all about it. They signed Jordy Mercer.
That's right.
Old Pirates guy. And at this point, if you were him, just think about it. Who would you rather? Who do you think you have the best chance to win with? It's the Tigers. Sure, they might be tanking or in the middle of it, but you have to think that there's light at the end of that tunnel.
So if you're the Pirates, you just let him walk? You let Mercer walk?
I don't know if that's exactly what they did. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what they did. But it's not even.
It's not like Detroit's a big spending ball club.
They go through their phases, but I'm telling you, they have something to sell on The deal's worth $5 million, with the $5.25 million with the chance to earn another $250,000 in incentives. Why not bring him back? Don't even tell me that you're going to play prospects, because that's what happens every time something goes bad with the Pirates. They're like, oh, we're going to bring in a prospect, or we already traded for so-and-so prospect. It's unbelievable at this point.
Should just call them the 49ers because they're prospecting for prospects.
But the 49ers brought in coaches to try to change that by bringing in Chip Kelly. You got to admit that that's a bold move to try to win. After you push out Jim Harbaugh, realize your mistake, fire Tom Sula, and then bring in Chip Kelly, find out that's a mistake, and then hire Kyle Shanahan. Pirates have done none of the sort. So it's futile for both, but man, oh man. Let's get on to something a little bit more positive. Let's get into Steelers beating the Patriots. Unfortunately, they're like, what, 2-8 against Tom Brady and Belichick? I think that's
Guess what? Do it in January and I'll be impressed. Because that was the only takeaway that I had was, of course they won. It was December. It was a meaningless game that had there was just a sense of pride is the only thing that we got out of that game.
Yeah, but last year when we lost, if we would have beat the Patriots last year, we wouldn't have had to play the Jaguars. We potentially would have had that bye, been in the conference, whatever, the divisional round already.
And then lost in that round.
Yeah, but you're in a better position. You can play at home. Or did they lose the Jaguars at home, though?
Yes.
Yeah, so never mind. Probably still would have lost.
At home.
I blocked these things out, Matt.
That was the one thing, the big thing that I took away from the game is victory, yes. Was it a good team win? Yes.
No. That was barely a good team win.
Guess what? They did the things that they needed to do to pull the win out, and Mike Tomlin had every opportunity to piss that game away like he's done at different parts of the year, a la Oakland, and he got it together, and he did what he needed to do to get the win. And I think, essentially, it saved his job. I think it saved him, and I think it saved Boswell.
Oh, it definitely saved Boswell. He was a broken man. When was that missed field goal in that game? Did he only miss one? Was it the third or fourth quarter?
I want to say the third, but it was a shank.
Oh, it was awful. And it was the way he was driving it, almost every college kicker makes that kick. The angle, the distance, it wasn't a hard kick to make.
And, I know there's a lot of people out there that are really hard on Boswell, but I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here. Heinz Field is not built and not designed to be favorable for kickers. There haven't been a lot of kickers who've been successful at Heinz Field. Roll your eyes all you want, but we had the paper towel puncher. He had a hard time making field goals there.
I thought they fixed a lot of those issues. That was when they had the open end.
I still think that there's issues with the wind, and I don't know.
I could see that. That first one, though, he short-legged that kick. You could tell when he stopped and pushed it to the right. I believe it was to the right. He short-legged it, and you could tell that he was nervous. And as soon as he hit it, he put his head down. His whole body language was just a man that was defeated. At that point, I thought, well, you might as well just take this guy out. It's like kicking a dead horse, putting him out there. And they put him back out. Now, luckily, it paid off for Tomlin, and maybe, because confidence is key with kickers, maybe that kick, I think it would have been a little bit weightier if it had actually beat the Patriots. If he misses that kick, Steelers still win the game. Because Patriots, they're up by 4? Patriots still have to get a touchdown, which they don't. You could say Tom Brady, for whatever reason, when he threw that errant pass on the right 5-yard line right in front of the end zone that was intercepted by Hayden, why would he do that? He could have threw that away, kicked the field goal, and they would have been in a much better position. So did the Steelers really play to win that game? Or did they just kind of luck out because Tom Brady drove him right down the field? He had 2 passes that were kind of high, For whatever reason, Gronkowski didn't even try to jump and catch him. Maybe they were higher than it looked on television. I don't know. But I mean, they had a chance to score. They even threw that last ball right in the end zone. So it wasn't like the Steelers had a nice, comfortable kneel-down win. But there's a lot of things.
I mean, in terms of New England, though, I know there were some different things that came out saying how they need to get more weapons for Tom Brady. They've been doing it all year. They've been trying to. They've signed Gordon. They signed Coleman.
Gordon had the big drop.
They got all these different guys that they've been bringing in and trying to put through. They got Edelman back after his suspension. You know, the pieces are there. Gronkowski's been somewhat healthy this season. But you're dealing with a 41-year-old quarterback too. Like, not taking anything away from him, but that there is a point where some of the throws, and I watching the replay of that last pass, I almost wonder if he didn't get enough ass on it and was trying to throw the backside post and just shorted it.
I thought he might have been throwing it, but he threw it a little bit too early. Like, Gronkowski was going to fill that hole, or the other guy, like you said, the post in the back, but he threw it a tad bit too early, and those guys didn't clear yet.
Because it looked like when the replay was really tight, but towards the back of the end zone where it looked like the ball should have went, they were in one-on-one coverage, and it was the right situation where you'd want your guy to be right down the middle for the play. But you know, I question, does he have the arm strength to push it down the field the way he has in the past?
Well, let's not start talking about my man Tom Brady like that. He has his strength, Matt. Did you see his workout?
No. I know. Every time I see anything that involves his workout, like he has like, for being as good of an athlete as he is, he has like the flabbiest physique.
I don't even know if he works out, Matt. You can't tell.
He probably just carries his wife's clothes around from fashion show to fashion show. That's probably his workout.
She probably has a ton of shoes. That's probably what it is. Puts them all in a crate and drags it around.
Yeah, because that doesn't look like it's bulkiness. It just looks like, you know, like carrying your kid's soccer stuff to practice.
The quintessential soccer dad, Tom Brady.
Yes, that's exactly what he looks like.
I will say there was one. What was it? It was early in the game, maybe first quarter. There was one sequence where I thought, wow, Tomlin's just going to get out coached this entire game. New England huddles up. It's a third and one or fourth and one. I think it was a third and one. And it was on their side of the field. They huddle up. The Steelers didn't know the package that the Patriots had put in. He sent in like random guys on this third and one. Tomlin was so baffled that he had two sets of defenders out on the field. New England runs up, hikes the ball, and runs it for like a 1-yard gain. But of course they take the 12 men on the field penalty. Immediately the next play is when Tom Brady hit, who'd he hit? Hogan? Wide open for the touchdown. He ran like 50, 60 yards. And I thought, holy cow, Tomlin doesn't even know what personnel is out for the Patriots. I mean, you can't, if you're in a huddle, you can't break the huddle with more than 12 guys. So someone in the booth had to say, hey, this is who he has in. He has a 2 tight end running back set or whatever it ended up being. I don't know. But some guy in the booth should spot that. He'd get his guys lined up. He didn't. And then he throws the touchdown wide open. And it was almost like they had no defense for the past 2 plays there. That they weren't ready for it at all. And I thought that's honestly how the rest of the game was going to go. But he was able to make adjustments. But that's the kind of thing that you can't have happen in the playoffs. You can't have those kind of mistakes because that one touchdown could ruin the game for you. So I don't know if you saw that or if you have any other things that you want to point out. But that was the big one to me. Same old, same old. It's a great win, but I don't know.
It is a great win, and I think it just goes to show even further with Connor not getting the touches and going with Samuels at running back, and I thought he did a serviceable job as well. I think it solidified what Le'Veon Bell's role within the offense was and what he contributed, and how that kind of, I guess, goes against what him come free agency now, when he goes to try to push to be a free agent. How much money is he going to command? Because they're showing we went from Le'Veon Bell to Connor to Samuels, and everyone's getting the ball, getting all these rushing yards, because let's face it, you can run the ball. Me and you could probably run the ball and get a couple positive yardage, when people have to worry about the tight ends and AB and Schuster and all these other players. We got to worry about all these other targets with Ben being the throwing threat that he is. It opens things up in the running game. It makes it easier when you don't have to run into a stacked box.
Yeah, and Samuels is just as versatile. He played what? Tight end, H-back at NC State. He played like 4 different positions.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I mean, we talked about it on the NFL draft night when they brought him in. That's what they brought him in for, as a third down specialty back to help out of the backfield. And now he could be as well-rounded as anyone else. He can cut through the holes. We saw that on Sunday. And I don't even know. Bringing in Ridley, he did okay. He was serviceable from what I saw. So it's not like they can't just plug in other players, because they've proven that they can. So you're right. I don't even hear anything about Le'Veon Bell anymore. Because the Steelers have played their way out of him. What was that?
Because we beat that dead horse enough.
Yeah, no one's talking about him. No one's even saying where he could go. No one cares. So let's go. Let's use that into the big one. Is going to be let's go into the around the NFL, because the game that's going to be the decider is Steelers play the Saints on Sunday. I think it's Sunday. I didn't check the day yet.
Yes.
Steelers play the Saints. Saints right now are playing for home field advantage in the NFC. Rams inexplicably lost. So I think they're on a 2-game losing streak. They are. They're playing their way out of home field advantage late in the year. And the Saints right there have won 2 in a row. They're 12-2. They beat the Panthers in a sloppy game. Their offense has looked nothing like in the past 2 weeks as it did early in the season. That plays into the Steelers' hands. Maybe the book is out on them. What you need to do to stop it. It might be some of the aging thing you mentioned with Tom Brady. Drew Brees has to feel that same pressure as the year goes on. His arm has to get a little bit tired. He is 39, I believe. So you have a quarterback and a team right now that the offense is kind of fluttering. Steelers right now need to win the game. Win this game. I think if you win, it locks up the playoffs. I'm not 100% sure what the tiebreakers are. Steelers do have the tie. So as of right now, yes, it would clinch the playoffs, I'm pretty sure. Because there's no other team that could get 9 wins. Steelers would have 9 wins and only 5 losses. Or even if they lost one of them coming into the last week of the season. Win this game, you're essentially in. There could be some other scenarios, but Bengals were eliminated. You got that on the second week. But I don't really want to leave it up to that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the Saints were struggling, and I did end up watching that entire game last night just because I was worried about my fantasy championship game getting my worst fear was going to bed and waking up finding out that I ended up laying an egg. So I watched the whole thing, and one of the things with the Saints offense is that teams really dial up. Like the Panthers last night, what they did was they took away Thomas for the Saints, and he's been their guy. His fantasy production, I know that's not like a stat that you really want to pull from, but he was scoring buku points per week. So he's highly targeted. He's highly valued as a receiver. And they put 2 and 3 guys on him all night and said, somebody else beat us. And they were able to run the ball. I think they just have to they've had to rely on throwing so much because people have loaded it up to try to take away Kamara and Ingram that they've kind of just grown accustomed to throwing it. I think they've thrown it with enough success now that the Saints really need to get comfortable with getting back into running the ball and letting Kamara handle more of that workload, or even go as far as letting Ingram carry more and just running the clock out and being more ball control, because that's going to help them down the road further.
Yeah, it's a key game for both teams. I'm hoping that the Saints really don't care about this game and they kind of let it slide. Steelers definitely need it because you want to clinch at least a home game in that opening round. You don't want to drop the division to the Ravens. They won their game. Lamar Jackson, I mean,
they're a dangerous team. To have to compensate for a running quarterback, the NFL showing that they're struggling with that when you have someone that can do it well.
And it's opened up the whole AFC, to be honest. Patriots only have 9 wins. Chiefs just lost to the Chargers. Was that the Chargers game?
Yes.
Yeah, almost put the Chargers in control here. Chargers have won 4 in a row. And
well, the thing with that is Chiefs lose 1, Chargers win 1. Chiefs go from top seed to Chargers being top seed, and Chiefs bump all the way to the wild card. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. So you're looking at getting that division round and having the better record so that you don't have to play a crazy wild card team like that. It's not what you want to do, because then you're going to be hurting in that first round. Let the other teams beat each other up, and then you have a favorable matchup, because that's what you're up against. How are you against those other division winners? Right now, you're looking at a winning percentage where you're still behind the Patriots and you're still behind the Texans and the winners of the Chiefs-Chargers. You're going to get slammed with that harder matchup in the first round if you're the Steelers. You got to win out. You don't want to be shoved into that wild card matchup against either the Chiefs or the Chargers. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. So definitely in the AFC, got to win because it's going to be a scary week. In the NFC, you have the Cowboys lose. Josh Johnson from San Diego, a Jim Harbaugh quarterback from 11 years ago, Matt, gets his first NFL win for the Redskins, I mean. And now they're back in it. The NFC East is such a mess. I mean, the Cowboys got slammed by the Colts. Absolutely slammed. And the Colts aren't even...
Andrew Luck, baby, returning to his old form.
The Colts are right there. They could sneak in. I don't know what the tiebreaker scenarios are, but they could sneak into that wild card. They're fighting the Ravens and the Titans.
Yeah, that's tight. I mean, with the way Tennessee's playing, and the sleeper team, though, is Cleveland. They're still in the... Who would have thought they're still in the hunt in December? They've not been eliminated yet.
It's a tie. But they need all 3 of those teams to lose 2 games, right?
Yeah, well, they're at the very bottom, but they're in the hunt. They're 6-7-1. So
yeah, they would need to win out, and they would need those 3 teams to drop both of their games or some combination if they play each other, because I don't know what the division games are for the Colts and Titans, but they would need the split that they would have the advantage over, and I don't know which that is off the top of my head. So they still have a chance. The other side in the... What is it? The AFC East, Dolphins are close, but
they're 7-7. They're in the hunt, but
yeah, they're going to need some help too. So it's kind of wide open. I think they said 7 teams were eliminated this weekend. So it's starting to clear itself up. We'll get a better picture next week. I don't even know what to think of in the NFC, because it seems like no one wants that wild card. You have the Seahawks right now in charge of that. And then the Vikings, which haven't been themselves. and then the Eagles and Redskins. You could potentially get both the Eagles and Redskins. Also, let's talk about Foles. I mean, he's the better quarterback, right?
Deja vu. It's literally almost a year to where they've turned to Foles, and Foles bailed them out of a jam against the Rams. Fast forward a year, Nick Foles comes in, plays the Rams, and knocks them off.
At this point, do you even go back to Wentz? What has he done to tell you that he's the franchise-leading quarterback?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I think with it is jersey sales, and if your owner just says you're going to play him, whether you like it or not, and that could be the reason.
I'll be honest. If I'm the Browns, I'm signing him no matter what. I don't care if you have Baker Mayfield. You get a Super Bowl winning quarterback that plays head and shoulders above Wentz. Let's be honest. They were never even going to be in conversation for the wild card because they would have lost that game to the Rams if Foles doesn't come in. Let's be honest.
It's a fair assessment. I'm not arguing that point. I think I agree with you, to be honest. But I think Foles, it's one of those moves that you can sit on the fence and play it both ways. You can say, oh yeah, well you shouldn't lose your starting quarterback. Like if your starting quarterback gets hurt, Wentz got hurt, you can't say, oh well when the starter comes back, it's his job again, and then Foles plays well, wins the Super Bowl, and then say, well, you can't lose your starting job due to injury, because you just play it both either way.
That's called the Bledsoe. He got hurt. Tom Brady came in, and what would have happened if they would have went back to Bledsoe?
Probably would have won. Probably be talking about all Drew Bledsoe's winning moments.
No, we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have. He would have been a serviceable quarterback. Tom Brady, who knows if he would even got another chance. It would have been like, what's the thing, the Wally Pip? That's what they always reference. So,
yeah.
I don't even know. That's all I got. You got anything else for the NFL?
Well, just as far as the wild card, I'm just going to throw my stab at it. Is I do think if the Eagles stay with Foles, I think that he's going to lead them into one of those wild card spots. To me, the Seahawks are just awful. I think I've watched a couple games. Watching their football games, I would be pissed off if I was a season ticket holder for Seattle, because it's almost unwatchable. Just like it's the NFL that we complained about a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, that the same recycled coaches, the same recycled system, trying to just grind that round peg into a square hole, and it's awful. And they score like 3 points a game. They field goal teams to death. And I think the Eagles are going to score. They're going to score more points. They're going to win more games, and they're going to back themselves into it. And I think the other team that's going to be in there is Minnesota. I think with the way Dalvin Cook's been running, I think they're just going to ride him straight into the playoffs. They're going to let Kirk Cousins be the game manager, and they're going to let the defense just handle it.
Seahawks, I agree. I don't know how they keep winning, but you're looking at Pete Carroll. They were talking about firing him a few weeks ago. Now they could be in the playoffs, and they could be stuck with them. I call that the John Harbaugh, where you're really close to getting let go, and now you're almost leading a resurgence. So now what happens? Are you seriously going to leave? I've heard that multiple teams have reached out to John Harbaugh. There's 2 teams that are the leaders, but I didn't get a clear sense on who those were. But I would have to imagine that he's getting calls from contending teams, one being the Packers, I would imagine. Because why not? I mean, come in, do your thing, let Aaron Rodgers do his thing. I mean, you let it work with Joe Flacco. Could you imagine if he had a better Flacco and Aaron Rodgers? I mean, I ask the same questions. Is Flacco elite? Is Aaron Rodgers elite? I don't know. He puts up numbers, but he doesn't win. And you know, we only appreciate winners on this show. So.
That's right.
That's all I have for the NFL. Let's get into the college football signing day. I'm trying to look here to see if I missed anything.
Well, there is one big thing coming out right now, is the Justin Fields transferring out of Georgia. Do you think the Bagmen are angry?
To be honest, it's not even just Georgia. It's going to be, college football is going to be free agency season now. We were talking about it before the show. Michigan has countless people transferring, or whatever. The 2017 class, which is the first class that would have been affected by this new rule where you don't have to sit out a year. I want to say Michigan's lost like almost that entire recruiting class, including 5-star defensive tackle, a couple 4-star, I think, offensive tackle. He might have been classified as a defensive tackle, though, when he came in. A couple running backs, which had off-the-field issues. And you have all of this stuff. You're going to just see movement across the league. And look at how Shea Patterson came in as a transfer, won the Michigan job, played very well almost the entire year. Why not, Fields? Why would you not look for transfer? Clemson has already lost 2. Were they both 5-star quarterbacks? Maybe a 4-star and a 5-star. I don't know if Kelly Bryant was a 5-star. But they lost Hunter. Was that his first name or his last name? They lost the one guy to Northwestern. I know his name was Hunter something. Maybe Hunter Johnson. That guy's just a guess, though. So
sounds right.
Signing day is getting to the point where it used to be awesome in February because you had, I think it always fell before the Super Bowl, and I could be wrong on that, but it was around that same time. You had football news, you can get pumped up about it. Right now, I honestly forgot that it was even now. I thought it was after Christmas, but it makes sense that it's now before the break. I'm just not as excited about it. Like, are we really going to see any flips? Not this early. I think most of the guys that are going to be the big show guys, they're not going to sign today. They're going to stress it out, do their Kardashian thing where they get all the attention on themselves, and then they'll still do their thing in February. So we'll see. I think from a Big Ten perspective, Penn State last year had their almost entire class booked up. And I think that's what Harbaugh's trying to do this year. I would imagine James Franklin worked for him last year. He's going to try to do the same thing. That's what you're going to see. So I think it's going to be kind of a boring day. I don't think you see a lot of flips. I think guys that don't sign are the guys that are going to come down, and that's when you start to see flips. If a guy is committed, he doesn't sign tomorrow, don't think that your school has him. Be ready for him to flip. And I think all the other rumors I've heard out of the Big Ten were that some recruits aren't sold on Ryan Day. The Urban Meyer thing kind of has split their fan base. Because on one hand, a lot of fans, I mean, they weren't happy the way he left, but he was recruiting at such a high level, I honestly think it hurts the Big Ten, him leaving. Ohio State, someone put up a class comparison where Ohio State was before Urban Meyer. I don't know if it was only Tressel or the coach before. I think it was the other coach before. And Ohio State was consistently behind Michigan in recruiting. Even though Tressel was sending more guys to the NFL, he wasn't a big recruiting guy. He was more of a development guy. Let's bring in the spread. He modernized Ohio State. That made Urban Meyer come in able to get those top 5 classes that Ohio State didn't get. So it's a very crucial time right now. Is Ryan Day going to be able to continue that? I've heard very good things from offensive recruits, but Ohio State, they weren't built. They're built on defense before. So are they going to be able to get the athletes that they need to run their stuff on defense? I'm not worried about the offense. I think they can always get athletes on the offense, but is their defense going to be as athletic enough to compete? And if it's not, I think you see a drop-off on the entire conference. Right now, it's a time for James Franklin. if Michigan's losing all these guys and it's some inner problem where they don't get a good recruiting jump tomorrow, it's Penn State's time. You have to take advantage of Urban Meyer leaving and the turmoil at Michigan right now. 0-4 against Ohio State in Harbaugh's tenure. Right now is a chance for James Franklin to get something done. He's in on a couple. I know he's in on a 5-star defensive end or defensive tackle, one of the two, that's deciding between Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State tomorrow. He has to win those battles. You can't lose that if you're James Franklin to Ryan Day, a brand new head coach. I think he's in between a wide receiver, a 6'3" receiver, a 4-star out of Michigan. You get or out of Connecticut, I think, but he's in a battle with Michigan. You can't lose that if you're James Franklin. You can't look at Michigan's passing numbers and say, wow, I can believe a recruit wants to play receiver there. Because they don't. Let's be honest. So Franklin can't lose those battles. That's my Big Ten recruiting wrap-up, Matt. You got anything for the ACC?
Yeah, the one of the big things with the signing that would be in your neighborhood is what's Sam Howell going to do? He was potentially going to be signing with Florida State. Mac Brown got hired, and kind of some of the craziness going on with UNC hiring. There's potential now that he could be a flip. He's definitely signing tomorrow, but it's up in the air now as far as where he's going to officially sign. I'd like to see him sign at Florida State, but I think with the uncertainty of, unless Taggart really had a good home visit and was able to say privately who the offensive coordinator is going to be, and they're just working on the details of the contract, because there really hasn't been any update on what that situation is. I think he's going to end up flipping to North Carolina, being that he's from there, and I think playing close to family may be a factor that would lead him to be there. Plus, playing in an air raid style offense might be a good fit for him. As far as that's concerned, with the Justin Fields stuff, that it surprises me that it's official now that he can be contacted by schools to see if they're interested in having him transfer. One of the things that I looked at is last year there was a big debate between Justin Fields and what's Clemson's quarterback's name? I'm drawing blanks tonight.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. And people were saying, well, who's the better quarterback, Lawrence or Fields? And, looking at the way the season progressed, it could have gone either way. But I think you give that tip to Lawrence right now until you see what Fields can do with a full year of playing experience. I would like for him to sign at Florida State. I think that would be a benefit. To be honest, he should have been there in the first place. I don't know who was working him during his recruitment, but when you look at what Georgia had with Fromm and the momentum that Georgia had going into his recruitment, I thought it was a weird choice for him to go to a school where you were going to be stuffed on the depth chart and not really have a big opportunity for playing time. So I'm curious to see where he lands, because at this point, I think opening up his transfer following now, supposedly there were some things going on with baseball and racial things that may make it easier for him to transfer straight out and not have to be held to redshirting a year. So I'm curious just to see who's going to be suiting him and where he ends up signing at the end of the day.
Well, I'll say this. Do you even have to sit out a year with the new rules?
I don't think you do, now that you're saying that.
Because I think that, and I could be wrong, but I believe Shea Patterson, his class, whatever year that was the last year that has to sit out. So when he came from Ole Miss to Michigan, he had to get a waiver. He's had that lawyer, and there were like the 5 other Ole Miss players that also had that. The one receiver went to Florida. I think they all had to get that. But I think starting with the 2017 class, which would be this transfer year, they're sophomores, and they would have 2 years left to play. Typically, those players wouldn't transfer in the past because you would have to sit out a year and you would only have your senior year left. Now, it's a free-for-all, and you're going to see coaches start to just cut players, basically tell them, like, hey, if you want to get playing time, look elsewhere. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be good. It's probably not good for the sport, at least for the younger schools. You might get some extra talent in. Maybe we'll see more of a balance, but you did remind me there, for the ACC, not only has Ohio State lost a couple recruits because they've been leaving, but Miami's decommits, I saw a list where...
Insane.
And they just lost a linebacker, Solomon, to Michigan. So these guys, they're not just picking another Florida school or something else. You're losing Miami kids to anywhere else. Their decommit list, if it was a recruiting class, I saw 24/7 put it together, it would be better than their actual commit class. They lost almost all their linemen. I think one flipped to Florida. Where did the other one go? I think the top 2 linemen, I know one flipped to Florida, the other one flipped to somewhere else, but they lost a 4-star linebacker, like I said, to Michigan. They lost a whole ton of players over the past 2 weeks right before this initial signing day. And I don't even know what the reason is. The other news was even the top quarterback was Mark Rick's nephew, as I'm stumbling over my words. He committed to LSU instead of Miami. So you're looking at just, I don't even know what to say. So if you think, Big Ten fans, if you think that Michigan and Ohio State look like dumpster fires on the recruiting trail right now, look at Miami. Has to be good for Florida State right now. I know Taggart had some issues recruiting, obviously getting the negative recruiting that he got hit with. But now is the time when Miami's down, Florida State could own that state, because I'm not convinced Dan Mullen at Florida is going to be able to take that next step. Will he give Michigan a beatdown in the bowl game, which maybe changes that momentum? Quite possibly if no one plays in that bowl game for Michigan. But I don't know. It's crazy. What do you think of that situation?
I like it because it plays right into Willie Taggart's strength. One of the big reasons why I bought into him going down there in the first place is the fact that he was a really good recruiter. And Florida State's recruiting class last year at this time was absolutely horrific. And in a short period of time, Taggart assembled a staff and got them boots on the ground and was able to pull in a quality class, given the state that there was a good month or two where Florida State's coaches weren't even recruiting anyone or weren't out on the road. And the reason that Jimbo bailed for A&M was because they knew that there were going to be these issues. I like to see that they've been super aggressive in going after JUCO linemen, which I think is a route that they need to go. They need to get depth. They need to get bodies that can play and get them up to speed in a hurry. And I think that they're addressing that. I'm curious to see not only how tomorrow plays out, but how that sets the table going into National Signing Day in February. And I think what you're seeing with a lot of the bigger schools is they want to see what that commitment is. And if you're dragging your feet, just like the players now can pull that scholarship, I think some of these other programs can say, well, look, if you're not willing to sign with us, we have these other kids that are, of equal talent that we can go ahead and potentially offer and have them sign. And if they sign, then we're going to give them the preferential treatment.
Yeah, and I can't even think, I'm trying to think, who does this help the most? Does it help bigger schools that can backfill, like you're saying, that says, hey, if you don't want to come, if you don't want to sign, if you, down the line, if you want to transfer without sitting out, go ahead, because we're just going to bring someone else in. Does it help Alabama keep getting number one recruiting classes, because they can just say, hey, so-and-so 5-star running back that came here out of California, I remember Harris, I don't think he's barely played right now. Does he wait his turn at Alabama, or does he transfer somewhere? Like, at some point, that's only going to help the Alabamas, I believe.
Well, I think with schools like that, they've already been milking the system, using gray shirts over over offerings players and then pulling them at the last minute or shifting them to JUCOs. So I think like those kinds of teams are already working the system and doing those types of things to begin with. I think who it ends up helping in the long run is the colleges, because when you look at the players in recent years who've taken the stance, I think this is a natural way to handle the players who want to skip bowl games to prepare themselves for the NFL, that want to leave after, the minimal amount, the 2 years and done, or 3 and out, that they can quickly get in, get what they need and go. I think that also solves that question. That I'm not faulting players. I mean, if I had an opportunity to play in the watching paint dry bowl versus preparing yourself for the combine, and making and having life-changing money for your family, it's a no-brainer. You're going to do what's best for your family, especially if you're coming from nothing and you have a chance to just change everything for your family. It makes sense to do that. So if you're going to do that, then maybe by being able to offer scholarship stuff to some other people or to have a little bit of extra depth, maybe that helps keep people on roster, on scholarship a little bit longer.
That's a good point, and I think it really helps, too, the new redshirt rule. Because if you don't play in 4 games, you can fill in. So let's say, and I'll use Michigan as my example, just because I'm more familiar with them. Last year in their bowl game, it was a disaster. You didn't have people sit out for the NFL, and you just had the team come out, and they were lackluster, let's be honest. They came out decent, and then they just got flat. And it looked like they didn't care. I would rather have players like that just don't care, not play at all. Let's see how the roster works itself out. If you're going to transfer, great. Don't play in the bowl game. Just go. No one's holding your hand. If you're going to go to the NFL, train for the NFL. I can't fault kids enough, or I can't encourage them enough to go get your money. If that's what you want to do, you don't owe it to anyone to play in a bowl game, because let's be honest, the bowl games don't matter. No one cares. No one can remember who won the Peach Bowl last year, which is the bowl Michigan's playing in this year. Unless your team was in it and they won.
UCF did. They won the national championship.
Oh, wait, yeah, you're right. Let's pick a different bowl.
I do remember that one.
Do you remember? Yeah, that was a national championship bowl. I got to pick one that wasn't the national championship, Matt. What about the Cotton Bowl? Was that one of the playoff games? I believe it is. I know it's a major bowl, but you don't really know. Unless it's a national championship game, or at least has national champion implications, you just don't care. So this year, they're not going to remember. I think Devin Bush said he was going to play, and now there are rumors he might not play. But after what happened to Jake Butt in that Orange Bowl against Florida State where he ripped his ACL, why would you risk it? He hasn't been the same in the NFL since. I mean, he was a first-round talent. I think he might have even been drafted close to the first round after the injury. I mean, if I'm him, I feel bad for the guy. He has to regret it. I mean, maybe he doesn't regret playing in that game because he loves the university or whatever, but you got to think about what's best. So I think it's a good chance I'm glad that they got rid of the red shirt, so you can play if you're young. Let the young kids come in and kind of play it as a glorified scrimmage. But
and I do like that aspect of it too, where you can get a look at some of these younger guys, and then it doesn't hurt you. So you get a chance to see what they can do in real game situations, and you get tape out there so that if they have things that they need to work on, rather than sometimes as a coach, it's easy to see a kid in practice and say, this is what you need to do. But a lot of times they may not listen or they may not understand until you physically show them the film and say, this is what I'm talking about. This is why you need to do it this way, so that they understand the why and are more willing to buy in and do what you need them to do.
And I think just to take this a step further before we get into the bowl games real quick to end the show, I think they should let teams that don't make bowls practice and let them have an inner scrimmage with people that are leaving, without people that are leaving or transferring. If you're going to do this early signing day, why not let those teams, if they want to, hold their practices the week before? I know they have finals or whatever. Let them hold and do it. When did these bowl games start? The 15th. Let them do that week before. Have a week of practice and do an inter scrimmage with the players that are going to stay. You figure that out. No travel. Just do the extra practices, because you always hear that. Well, I would love to have the extra practices for a bowl game. Why not? If kids are transferring, at least see what you have before signing day, where if you have to work some late kids in January, it's only going to help the players if the coach knows what he has. Let them talk to the guys after that Thanksgiving week and let them run 2 weeks of practice up before that first bowl game. When the bowl game hits, they're done. I think the cutoffs now, the last game, give them 2 weeks or so, even give them a week. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you can't win the games to qualify, then go home. Then go home. You don't deserve it. And Florida State is a prime example. They didn't do it. They didn't do what they needed to do. And you look at some of the teams that, had the opportunity to play them, could they beat them? I think so. I think just on talent alone and just lining up and throwing them out there, they should win. They should be competitive with the majority of the teams that they played. But you know what? You didn't win the games. You didn't do what you needed to do. So go sit at home. Go figure it out. And when you can field a team that's respectable enough for it, come out, show up, and earn it.
I'm just looking at it from the player perspective, the transfers and stuff. I say if the guys are going to transfer and there's no holds bar on this, and it looks like everyone's announcing now, let the other teams practice so that you know who's in and who's not. It's basically like a big team meeting, which I don't think are allowed if you're not in the bowl game. I don't know what all contact is there, but at least be consistent, because you're really putting teams that don't make the bowls at a disadvantage now.
But you know what? Those college coaches, they're around those players so much from August through camp, through the regular season. If you don't know what the hell you have on your roster by the time November rolls around, then go sell snow cones or go pump gas somewhere. Go do something else, because you're not there. You're not doing it. I think you got to know what you have. And you can tell just by the way people carry themselves. What attitude do they bring? There's a lot of the stuff that it's not on the field stuff. It's the attitude. It's the willingness to be coachable that I think really drives some of this. And when you do things your way, as opposed to doing things the way the team or your coach wants you to do, I think it has an effect, and it can spread to the rest of the team. So sometimes the best answer to it is, especially on a team that struggles and is very individualistic, sometimes it's stepping back and trying to get some of those pieces in and working with the younger leaders to get them to do the things that they need to do to lead and get the team going in the right direction.
You know what, Coach? You're probably right. So I say let's go with that. Let's get into the bowl games. Like you said, as a coach, you got to kind of lead the players. Now is a good chance, when you're not in those bigger playoff bowls, to see what kind of coach is able to motivate his guys. Unfortunately, I made a big mistake because I looked at the wrong bowl pick'em when we did our initial picks last week. So we missed a whole bunch of bowls that we didn't get to pick, because I thought that the games I had first were the early games, but they were a week late. So we missed North Carolina A&T beat Alcorn State, which I'll be honest, I didn't even know Alcorn State was an FCS team.
The only reason I know them is because Steve McNair played there.
Yeah, I thought they were a lower division. Like they were, like he was like the Joe Flacco of his time. But they lost to North Carolina A&T, who had a great season down here. The other games, Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns beat the Tulane Green Wave. I don't even know if you can call these aren't really upsets. The next one, Utah State Aggies, they crushed North Texas Mean Green. And Utah State looked great all year. I think their coach went to Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken. So if he can get them playing like he has Utah State play, they could be formidable in the future. Our boy Herm, he lost his game to Fresno State, Arizona State, but that's another one. That's not really an upset. Fresno State was 10-2 going into that game. Arizona State was a 7-win team.
And that was their roster, looking at it from a recruiting standpoint, they were JUCO. Almost their whole team was like JUCO offensive line.
Which team?
And Fresno State.
Well, yeah, that's how these younger teams are going to be. Look at the guys that are transferring. One of the guys Michigan lost went to Cincinnati. They're not going to go to bigger schools because the bigger schools are bringing in freshmen to backfill their rosters. The kids that transfer out, most likely, they're not going to be the Shea Pattersons going from Ole Miss to Michigan. I think it's Hunter Johnson going from Clemson to Northwestern. They're not jumping from Big Ten, ACC, back and forth, SEC. They're going to be transferring to lower divisions. That's why it's going to be interesting to see where Fields goes. Is he going to go to Ohio State? I think he's been talking to Ohio State. Does he go there? Or does he end up somewhere else where they don't have a quarterback? And like you said, bring in JUCOs, bring in whatever. You're going to have teams that can compete. And at that point, you can't tell me that you shouldn't expand the playoffs. Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to have a quality coach at one of these teams like Fresno State who has had, wasn't Carr, he's from there, he was like an overall number 1 pick? I believe so, right?
Yep, David Carr.
So you're not going to tell me that if they can get a coach that can recruit top NFL talent, that they should be left out of the playoffs. And I think that's why they're already talking about expanding it to 8, because they know that if they don't expand it and start to let UCF in or some other group of 5 team in, that it's going to collapse and the NCAA is going to step in. And look what they're doing with basketball. 40 teams aren't enough. Let's go to 64. Oh, that's not enough. Let's go to 68. That might not be enough. We might have to go to 92 like they were talking a few years ago. They're just going to keep getting it bigger and bigger because they see the money. So, I don't know. Fresno State deserve to win. They're the better team. Of course, they get it done. Georgia Southern played a surprisingly close game with Eastern Michigan, 23-21. I thought Georgia Southern was going to run all over them.
Actually, I thought they were going to lose that one, and they came back and won it on a field goal at the very end.
Yeah, crazy. I thought they were going to – I just didn't – I wasn't impressed by Eastern Michigan this year. So, and the other not surprising, App State, I should have had that as my number 1 overall confidence, but I didn't even rearrange mine. 10-2 or 9-2 coming in. They crushed Middle Tennessee. This is the same App State team that – did that Penn State game go to overtime this year? I believe they went to overtime with Penn State.
Yep.
I mean, they're quality. They've been quality for over a decade. I'm surprised that, and I know it's a small school, there's nowhere for them to go, but I'm surprised that East Carolina still gets more attention in the state itself down here than App State does in terms of football. Like East Carolina still pulls a lot of regional recruits, and App State kind of takes the leftovers, and look what they do with them. If they could get even East Carolina level recruits, that team in their system, whatever they run there, because it's been multiple coaches, look out. Because you could have a Boise State situation, a UCF situation. I just don't know if they have the money to recruit a wide range like East Carolina does. And East Carolina hasn't even been good recently. And then the game that happened tonight, UAB, it just went final a few seconds ago, or a few minutes ago. I might be on a delay. UAB Blazers beat Northern Illinois. And I had that one picked too. So
I did too. Winner.
The only one I missed, it says I didn't pick Utah State, but I'm pretty sure I picked them because I knew that they were like an awesome team. And then, of course, I picked Louisiana Raging Cajuns. So I'm going to kick myself if I accidentally circled the North Texas Mean Green on my pick'em, because I figured Utah State was a lock. And then, of course, Tulane and Louisiana I couldn't care less about. But let's go through the next couple. So we're still going to do the same thing we talked about. Next week is Christmas. So we're going to have probably, it's definitely going to be a pre-recorded show. I'm going to put it out there. The following week is New Year's. but I'm going to try to do the show that night, but we'll see. I'll tweet something out, so keep an eye on that. But we're going to go through and do our picks show. But real quick, to end the show this week, Matt, we have a couple other games this week before. Actually, we have a whole slew of them. Let's just pick through the best ones. San Diego State, Ohio Bobcats.
Go Bobcats.
That's who I had picked. And to be honest, that's going to be a close game. 7-win team versus an 8-win team. Who cares? Marshall versus South Florida.
I want the Bulls.
I actually went with the Herd, and I'll tell you why. Because they have Charlie Strong. And I don't know if Charlie Strong is a good coach. I honestly don't. Like, what has he done? South Florida was 7-0 this year. They lost their last 5 games. Or South Florida, is that what I said? They started out 7-0. Well, what confidence would you have of them going into their bowl game? They've obviously been figured out. Charlie Strong hasn't done anything to give me any confidence in them. I don't know anything about Marshall, but that's why I went with Marshall, just because I don't have a good vibe on what Charlie Strong's doing there. Another game I don't care about, FIU, Florida International, and Toledo. What do you think, Matt?
I got the old Toledo because Florida International's running back just got arrested.
Well, I didn't know that before. I had picked Florida International, and they were the underdog. Some of these I like to go with the underdog, but we'll see. Toledo, I just don't know how the MAC does. They're like the weak Big Ten.
Give me some action.
Next one, Western Michigan versus BYU.
I went with WAMU for no reason.
Is that Western Michigan?
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was some weird BYU thing you were throwing at me. But I went with Western Michigan too because BYU has been hit with so many coaching changes, and I know they're the heavy favorites here. Yeah, great, they beat Wisconsin, but...
Well, yeah, BYU's like 47 years old. Team of dads.
Well, that's true. The only thing that gave me pause is it's the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, and then I wasn't sure where that game was located, and I didn't even look it up, to be honest. So I hope it's not out west, because that could swing it back in BYU's favor. But I already picked Western Michigan, so I'm sticking with that one. Let's see. We only have a couple more. Memphis or Wake Forest? Oh, we talked about this one, didn't we? Yeah, I think we picked the rest of these last week, so this is where we started. I picked Wake Forest.
Wake.
Then Army, Troy, and then I picked Hawaii. You went with Louisiana Tech, I think. So that should get us caught up till the next week's bowl show. These early games, first off, they weren't even on the one pick'em that I'm in, the one that I read last week. So I just don't think they're meaningless. Why have these games? Are they great for the kids? Are they really? Is it really great for them to have a vacation to Birmingham? Which I'm sure Jeff...
You can see the Birmingham Iron.
What, isn't that where Jeff went? Did he go to Birmingham? I don't know if he traveled with Pitt to their bowl game when he was there or not. I think that was the year he was there. Because I think he played for... I don't know. We'll have to have him on the show and ask him. If he really... is that worth it? Is that a great vacation to spend Christmas in Birmingham, Alabama, when you're on a 6 or 7 win Pitt team? And to be honest, we didn't even talk about Pitt for recruiting because I haven't heard any good news from them. So signing day, we'll try to do the show after signing day sometime, the next week's show. So maybe we'll hit on that too in next week's pre-record, so you can hear that. Because I'm going to be pretty hot, I have a feeling, whenever a bunch of these guys hold off signing, and then they have their planned events with Under Armour at the Army Bowl. So that's all I have. You have anything for the final bell?
Nope. Just be safe over the holidays.
Yeah, definitely.
Go
Steelers, beat the Saints, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.